Lambton Heritage Museum's Lambton Gallery is being redesigned. The entire space will have a new look and different objects will be on display. This series of videos looks back on a few of the highlights. In this video, we're talking to Paul Miller to learn about Ned McRobie, the youngest drummer in the British Empire.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I'm here with Paul Miller, who used to work at the Lambton Heritage Museum, and he's going to share with us a bit about some of the military artifacts we've had on display here, and in particular, the uniform of little Ned McRobie. So, Paul, thanks for being with us today.
You're welcome. This World War I uniform belonged to Edward Ned McRobie of Petrolia. His father, John McRobie, was Mayor of Petrolia during the First World War. And in May 1915, Ned became the official mascot of the 149th Battalion when he was only 3.5 years old. He traveled throughout Lambton County with members of the 149th, assisting in the recruiting drive. Later on, he traveled throughout the province and even into the United States as far as Chicago. At every stop, postcards of Ned wearing his uniform, entitled Youngest Drummer in the British Empire, there's the postcard, were sold for 10 cents apiece. The money raised went to Canada's Patriotic Fund, which was a fund designed to help needy families of soldiers serving overseas.
So, can you tell us anything about when the museum acquired this artifact or how we acquired it?
I can. The museum had a collection of newspaper clippings out of Toronto papers that a former resident had compiled. And every once in a while, I would go through the clippings to see if there was anything of interest. One day, I came across an article with a photograph of Edward McRobie, who had just finished building a scale model of the home he grew up in Petrolia. Well, I thought there must be a connection with Ned McRobie, youngest drummer in the British Empire. And this was in the days when not too many people had cell phones, but everyone had a landline. So a few minutes later, I was talking to Mr. McRobie on the telephone. And I said, do you know anything about Ned McRobie, the youngest drummer in the British Empire? And he said, well, I should, that's me. Well, I was rather taken aback. And he told me the story of how he became the mascot for Lambton's 149. And he asked if I had the postcard in the museum collection. And we didn't have one, so he kindly said, I'll send you one, I have a few left over. About 20 minutes later, I got to thinking and called him back. And I asked Mr. McRobie, whatever happened to that uniform? And he said, well, I gave it to my grandkids in Calgary to wear on Halloween. I'm going to be out there in a few weeks, and I'll see if they've still got it. Well, a month later, a box arrived with the uniform, complete with cap, tunic, breeches, and all the badges. So I phoned Mr. McRobie to thank him very much for his generous donation. And I said, what happened to the drum? And he said, well, I studied electrical engineering at the University of Toronto. My plan was to join a marching band because I heard it was a good way to meet girls. I said, how did that work out? He said, not very well. The drum never surfaced, but we have the uniform, and it's one of the prized exhibits and artifacts at the museum. Later on, Mr. McRobie told the Sarnia Observer that he must be the youngest survivor of World War I, although he didn't see combat. And in 2014, Ned's cap was on display at the Ontario Legislature, where it was part of an Ontario Communities exhibit.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. That's a great story about how this artifact came to be here at the museum. We appreciate you coming back to share it with us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.